Hey, it's Sam, and I'm talking about January 2024. It's upon us, and I have the 7 most important shifts for 2024. Very interesting things to discuss here with planets moving direct, with planets shifting, new moons, full moons, exact conjunctions, and whatnot. I want to thank my friend and colleague and student, Casey Scott at Gold Star Astrology, for this calendar. We're just going to be going off of this. You can even get these calendars yourself. When you look him up at Gold Star Astrology. I know that's his handle on Instagram and whatnot. So again, we're going to be talking about these 7 most important shifts, but of course it's also January 2024, and there's a 2024 forecast as well that's available. So again, these 7 important shifts are really going to be important to know, and we're going to get to that today. Go to 2024vedicastrology.com to download the 11 most important shifts in 2024. Don't be blindsided by the upcoming eclipses, retrogrades. You can get the free forecast, which is both the PDF download as well as the free video report. Yeah, so free video report and PDF. And the 11 important shifts for this year include Jupiter moving into Taurus for a year, 2 eclipses, Mercury retrograde cycles throughout the year. Also Saturn retrograde. We have a big Mars exaltation in early February, and then Mars is debilitated at the end of the year. So big stuff for you to know, and it's going to affect you differently based on your sign. But check that out. It's free. You get a download and then close to an hour-long video. But today, as I say, we're looking at January 2024 and starting with actually 2 planets that had been retrograde. That's Jupiter and Mercury have just stopped going retrograde. They're what's called stationary direct. So even though we've had some energy that's felt pretty sort of backed up around the end of the year, both Jupiter and Mercury stopped going retrograde, and they're sort of stationary direct is what it's called. So first Jupiter, which is that sense of optimism, purpose, direction, what's inspiring you. Since September, that's been kind of backwards, like, you know, where am I going? What's the point of all this? Suddenly, maybe you feel re-inspired and even oddly optimistic, even though maybe it feels like, I don't know why I'm optimistic. Things seem really dark, but for some reason, I feel like I have a sense of direction again, right? Or at least I'm not just confused about where I'm going relative to my purpose and sense of hope. That's because Jupiter has started to move, or he stopped going retrograde, and stationary direct happened December 31st. But then also Mercury was retrograde, and he's stationary direct started on January 1st, and he's at the end of Scorpio. He's in between Scorpio and Sagittarius. So, you know, you maybe felt a little bit underwater with your ideas and thoughts and stories here around the end of the year because Mercury went retrograde, and it's gone back over what's called the Gandanta point, which is between the last degrees of Scorpio and first degrees of Sagittarius. So again, it tends to feel a little bit like underwater, or sort of in a sort of caught between frustration and hope and doubt. So anyway, Mercury is also no longer going retrograde. So we're starting to sort of put the pieces together a little bit more, or at least we're not feeling as confused about our ideas. And this is important with both Jupiter and Mercury because we have the sun in Sagittarius, and then we just had the full moon in Gemini, which is ruled by Mercury. So these 2 planets, Jupiter and Mercury, are about really sort of figuring things out and how they work, which is Mercury, and then connecting them to larger purpose and vision, which is Jupiter. So having both of them retrograde felt a little disorienting, but now we can sense where we're going again and sort of what it all means. So at the beginning of the year, that's a welcome change. And then you see Mercury is also going to go back into Sagittarius January 7th. He's going to be hanging out in Scorpio in that, again, in that what's called Gandanta position. Between then, between January 1st and the 7th, and then even once he goes into Sagittarius, he'll be still in that kind of subliminal space there for a few days. So until about the 10th or so, we're still going to be, you know, sort of trying to figure our way out, or, you know, trying to get the story more straight, but at least he's moving forward. So be aware of some communication snafus and sort of confusions. Until then, you might be feeling like, keeping all the details straight is a little strange. Then we have a new moon in Sagittarius, Purva Ashada Nakshatra. That's January 11th. And this new moon is actually, according to the Indians, the ancient Indians, the Vedic people, this is actually the beginning of their new year and the beginning of the season and the beginning of that soli-lunar month. So for all intents and purposes, if you're looking for a real archetypal new year that aligns with both the northern course of the sun, which starts on the solstice, and the sun and moon coming together, which is the new moon, which is the new lunation cycle, this is when the Indians started their new year, on the new moon after the solstice. So if you want to really do the Vedic New Year, this would be it. The new moon after the solstice is really the Vedic New Year. And look, it's January 11th, 111, 111, portal, 111, portal. We love our numerology portals, 111, portal. You heard it here first. And so in the Vedas, this is what started the month of winter, and it also started the season of winter, and then the month of Tapa, and the year started on this new moon. And it's Purvashada Nakshatra, which is very devotional, ruled by the god Apus, the god of the ocean. So again, this is akin to spiritual devotion. And Sagittarius is, of course, about inspiration and purpose and aligning with your teachings and actually putting those teachings into practice, not just believing them blindly. So then we have the sun in Capricorn, and you see it says false solstice event. What does that mean? January 14th. And this means that it's called Makara Sankranti. Makara is a Capricorn, and Sankranti means the sun going into Capricorn. And this is you'll see like in Indian websites and others will be celebrating this as the return of the light, and of the northern course of the sun. It's on all the websites as well still these days. This mistake persists, and it is a mistake. It's not the return of the light or the northern course. Return of the light, northern course, is the solstice, which was December 21st. If you would call the sun moving into tropical Capricorn. So a couple thousand years ago, when these two things were coincident with each other, they started using language interchangeably. And at the time, in the text, when the sun would go into sidereal Makara, sidereal Capricorn, it coincided with the northern course of the sun. Now, the sun going into sidereal Capricorn doesn't coincide with the solstice. It's 3.5 weeks later. So this is why I say false solstice event. So we could still celebrate Makara Sankranti as a sort of renewal with the sun going into sidereal Capricorn, but it's not the northern course. It's not the return of the light. It's none of those things, okay? That's the solstice celebration, and you should just understand that. But, of course, the sun moving into sidereal Capricorn is also a big event, because then the planets are going to start to shift into Capricorn. But most of them are going to be lagging behind in Sagittarius because we had the Mercury retrograde, and Venus retrograde is still sort of trying to catch up. So you see this next event here is Venus going into Sagittarius. Venus will go into Sagittarius on January 18th. Again, Venus had been retrograde, and it has been in Scorpio. It's still pretty far behind the sun. It's catching up to him now. But Venus in Sagittarius, leaving Scorpio, going into Sagittarius, will be a time to really be sort of, to bring our devotion and our sense of beauty and joy into a more spiritual context, even like a religious one. Again, Venus is the indicator of romantic relationships and agreements with others, with adults. So it will elevate those agreements into something that's more worthy, less filled with desire and with, compromise. For romantic relationships, you could even see where you can have maybe some disagreements about your philosophies and personal beliefs, because, again, Venus is about our agreements that we're making, and Sagittarius is about our beliefs and even things like religion and sense of purpose and direction. But in a very neutral sense, Venus and Sagittarius can be very devotional, where we find beauty and happiness in these great teachings, these wonderful gurus. And if you are with a partner or even with people that you spend time with who are of like-minded belief system as you, who, let's say, share the same, gurus and religion and spiritual practices, then Venus and Sagittarius will bring you closer with them. So that's a big shift, Venus and Sagittarius starting January 18th. Then this full moon in Cancer happens January 25th. It's in Pushya Nakshatra. So this full moon in Cancer, this is where the moon is the ruler, right? And of course, Cancer is an emotional sign, and this full moon in Cancer brings real potential for deeper devotion here. I'll do a fuller video on this full moon, but suffice to say, it's a big shift in the middle of, or around the end of January. And it's in Pushya Nakshatra. Pushya is literally the nakshatra related to the breasts. It's the part of Cancer that is literally the breasts. And again, you have to understand, this is how we know that it's the sidereal zodiac that's used in Indian astrology. Literally, the nakshatra of Pushya is the breasts. And again, these are sidereal zodiac signs. There's nothing to confuse here, right? We can't just say Cancer means any section of the sky. No, it's in the Vedic sense, because the Indian zodiac is nailed to the nakshatras. The nakshatra of Pushya is right in the middle of the sign of Cancer. And by the way, in the tropical zodiac, this nakshatra of Pushya, of the breasts, is completely in Leo. So again, tell me how that makes sense. Well, of course it doesn't. These nakshatras align with the rashis, and this is one where you can see very plainly the sign of Cancer is ruled by the moon. It's related to motherhood, nurturing, and the most prominent nakshatra, or at least the one right in the middle of it, is Pushya, which is literally the breasts, where we give selfless love and nurturing, right? So again, and you'll see in Western astrology, well, why do they all say Leo? Because they're not using the zodiac that's based on the sky and the space. They're using the one based on starting the zodiac from the vernal equinox, which is not the same. So this full moon in Cancer will be very big for aligning our information and our ideas in the heart, because it comes after Gemini. So, and also that kind of selfless love and joy that we get from knowledge. Like a mother loves nurturing her child, not just with milk, but with knowledge, right? And loving guidance. So that will be big. And of course, the moon will be big and bright, and you'll see it up there looking beautiful at that time. Then, end of the month, we have Mars-Mercury exact conjunction in Sagittarius, January 27th. And of course, Mars and Mercury, when they get together, they kind of interrupt each other a little bit. So you want to be careful of strong opinions masquerading as ideas. Heard me say quite a bit recently, as Mars went through Scorpio, as Mercury went through Scorpio. And even when Mars was in Scorpio and combust, Mars, because we don't usually use Mars to get in there and fight with each other physically, we use Mars can come out verbally with a lot of verbal cutting energy. And so Mars can sound a lot like Mercury. Our opinions and judgments and aggressive comments sound a lot like Mercury, which is ideas. Mercury is not aggressive. Mercury is curious. Curiosity is very different than aggression. I'm right now, and I'm going to prove to you I'm right. Now you prove I'm wrong, and a confrontation. So this is what Mars sounds like. Mercury sounds like being flexible and trying to, and being curious about knowing the truth and willing to be wrong even. So when Mars and Mercury get together, particularly now in this case it's Sagittarius, which can also be very fired up about what's right, then it can be that sort of confrontation over what you think is right, what you know is right, and you can get into some verbal battles here. So be careful. Mars and Mercury are going to be joined much of, well, it'll be joined pretty much the whole month once Mercury goes into Sagittarius on the 7th, but it's going to be far away. And here on the 27th, Mars and Mercury will reach an exact conjunction. And then they're going to be in Capricorn as well. They'll be in the same signs for a while. We're going to have Mars in Capricorn for February and into the middle of March, which I'll talk about when we get to February 2024. But again, this is the this is the 7 most important shifts of January 2024. And again, I want to thank Casey Scott for putting together this great calendar so we can see it all laid out there. And I hope you have a great January 2024. For a limited time, I'm offering 10 hours of masterclasses, Yoga and Vedic Astrology, Quantum Vedic Astrology, and Spiritual Astrology Masterclass. These are 3 great courses that will really help you a lot. Now, in case you don't know who I am, I taught the AstroVed certification course, Dattatreya Shiva Baba, in 2010. Ravi Shankar published my book in 2018. I've been around for decades. I've been teaching these great classes, and if you go to VedicAstrologyEssentials.com, you can get this 90% off discount of these 3 great classes, more than 10 hours, guaranteed value. You can check this out. These 3 classes will give you all the necessary tools to begin to learn Vedic astrology. Please find me on YouTube at Sam Jeppy, Vedic Astrology Teacher. On there since 2007, thousands of hours of classes. Also on Facebook at Astrology Teacher, tons of articles updated regularly, and I'm on Instagram at Vedic Astrology 108, ongoing updates and interaction.